In the year 2157, humanity had finally achieved the dream of interstellar travel, colonizing multiple planets across the galaxy. The United Earth Federation UF governed these colonies, ensuring peace and prosperity for all. Dr. Lila Novak, a brilliant xenobiologist, had always been fascinated by the possibility of extraterrestrial life. Little did she know that her life was about to change forever. Lila sat in her lab on Earth, analyzing data from the UF's deep space probes. It had been a long day, and she was about to call it quits when an unusual signal caught her attention. It was a repeating pattern, unlike anything she had ever seen before. The signal was emanating from an uncharted planet in a distant star system. Excited by the prospect of a new discovery, Lila immediately contacted her superiors at the UF. They were just as intrigued by the signal and decided to assemble a team of experts to investigate. Lila was chosen to lead the mission, along with a crew of scientists, engineers, and military personnel. The journey to the uncharted planet would take several months, even with the most advanced hyperspace technology. As the team prepared for the mission, Lila couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to make a groundbreaking discovery that would change the course of human history. As the UF starship Solaria exited hyperspace, the crew was greeted by a breathtaking sight. The uncharted planet was a vibrant blue-green, with swirling clouds and vast oceans. It looked remarkably similar to Earth, but there was something strange about it that Lila couldn't quite put her finger on. The Solaria entered orbit around the planet, and the crew began their initial scans. They detected the presence of an advanced civilization on the surface, with sprawling cities and complex infrastructure. The signal they had detected was emanating from the largest city, which seemed to be the planet's capital. Lila and her team were eager to make contact with the alien civilization, but they knew they had to proceed with caution. They decided to send a small landing party to the surface, while the rest of the crew remained on the Solaria to monitor the situation. As the landing party descended to the surface in a shuttlecraft, they were struck by the alien architecture of the city. The buildings were tall and sleek, with curved lines and shimmering surfaces that seemed to defy the laws of physics. The streets were bustling with activity, but as they drew closer, they realized that something was amiss. The landing party touched down in a large plaza in the center of the city. As they exited the shuttlecraft, they were greeted by a group of tall, slender aliens with pale blue skin and large, almond-shaped eyes. The aliens were wearing form-fitting suits that seemed to be made of a strange, metallic fabric. Lila stepped forward, her heart pounding with excitement and nerves. She had trained for this moment for years, but nothing could have fully prepared her for the reality of making first contact with an alien species. "Greetings," she said, using a universal translator to communicate with the aliens. "We come in peace, from the United Earth Federation. We detected your signal and have come to establish peaceful relations between our two civilizations." The aliens regarded her with curiosity, tilting their heads to the side, as if studying her. Finally, one of them stepped forward and spoke in a melodic, almost hypnotic voice. "Welcome to Zephyria, travelers from Earth. We have been expecting you. Please come with us. Our leaders are eager to meet you." Lila and her team exchanged glances, surprised by the aliens' apparent knowledge of their arrival. They followed the aliens into a large, dome-shaped building that seemed to be some sort of government center. Inside, they were greeted by a group of alien officials who introduced themselves as the Zephyrian High Council. The council members were even taller and more imposing than the aliens who had greeted them outside, with piercing eyes and an air of authority that was almost palpable. The leader of the council, a female alien named Zyra, stepped forward and addressed Lila directly. "Dr. Novak, we have been monitoring your civilization for some time now. We are impressed by your achievements and believe that our two species have much to learn from each other. We invite you to stay on Zephyria as our guests, so that we may share our knowledge and technology with you." Lila was taken aback by the offer, but she knew that it was an incredible opportunity. She glanced at her team, who all seemed to be in agreement. "We would be honored to accept your invitation, High Counselor Zyra. Thank you for your hospitality." Over the next few days, Lila and her team were given a tour of Zephyria's capital city. They marveled at the advanced technology that seemed to be integrated into every aspect of Zephyrian life. The aliens had mastered clean energy, with vast arrays of solar panels and wind turbines that powered the entire city. They had also developed advanced transportation systems with sleek, high-speed trains that could traverse the entire planet in a matter of hours. But what impressed Lila the most was the Zephyrians' medical technology. They had developed advanced methods of healing that could cure even the most serious of illnesses and injuries. They had also achieved a level of genetic engineering that allowed them to modify their own biology, enhancing their physical and mental capabilities. As Lila and her team continued their tour, they began to notice some strange things about Zephyrian society. Despite their advanced technology, the aliens seemed to live in a highly structured, almost regimented society. Everyone seemed to have a specific role to play, and there was little room for individuality or creativity. Lila also couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Everywhere they went, they were accompanied by Zephyrian guards who seemed to be monitoring their every move. She tried to push these thoughts aside, telling herself that it was just a precautionary measure, but she couldn't help but feel uneasy. As the days turned into weeks, Lila and her team began to settle into life on Zephyria. They were given comfortable quarters in the government center and were allowed to continue their research into Zephyrian technology and culture. But Lila couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. She began to notice inconsistencies in the information they were being given, and she started to suspect that the Zephyrians were hiding something from them. Her suspicions were confirmed when she overheard a conversation between two Zephyrian officials. They were discussing a secret project that involved using Earth's resources to fuel their own technological advancement. Lila was shocked by what she heard, and she knew that she had to act fast. She quickly gathered her team and told them what she had discovered. They all agreed that they needed to get back to the Solaria and warn the UEF about the Zephyrians' true intentions. But as they made their way back to the landing site, they were confronted by a group of Zephyrian guards. Zyra stepped forward, her expression cold and calculating. "I'm afraid we can't let you leave, Dr. Novak. You know too much about our plans. We cannot allow you to jeopardize our mission." Lila and her team were surrounded, with no way to escape. They knew that they were in trouble, and that they would have to fight their way out if they wanted to survive. The team quickly sprang into action, using their training and equipment to fend off the Zephyrian guards. Lila and her second-in-command, Captain Jack Harris, led the charge, using their weapons to create a path through the enemy lines. As they fought their way back to the Solaria, they were pursued by more Zephyrian forces. The aliens had advanced weaponry that seemed to be powered by some sort of energy field, and they were relentless in their pursuit. Lila and her team managed to make it back to the Solaria, but they knew that they couldn't leave just yet. They had to find a way to disable the Zephyrians' weapons and prevent them from pursuing them into space. Lila had an idea. She had noticed that the Zephyrians' technology seemed to be powered by a central energy core located deep within the government center. If they could find a way to overload the core, it would disable all of the Zephyrians' technology and give them a chance to escape. The team quickly formulated a plan. Lila and Jack would infiltrate the government center and make their way to the energy core, while the rest of the team would create a diversion to draw the Zephyrians' attention away from them. The plan was risky, but they knew that it was their only chance. They put on their combat gear and set out, determined to succeed no matter the cost. Lila and Jack made their way through the government center, avoiding detection by the Zephyrian guards. They finally reached the energy core, a massive, pulsating sphere of blue energy that seemed to be the source of all of the Zephyrians' power. As they approached the core, they were confronted by Zyra and a group of elite Zephyrian warriors. The aliens had anticipated their plan and had set a trap for them. "You are clever, Dr. Novak, but you are no match for us. We have been planning this for centuries, and we will not let you stand in our way." Lila and Jack fought bravely, but they were outnumbered and outmatched. Just as they were about to be overwhelmed, the rest of the team arrived, having fought their way through the Zephyrian defenses. Together, they managed to overload the energy core, causing a massive explosion that rocked the entire city. The Zephyrians' technology was disabled, and they were left powerless and vulnerable. Lila and her team made their way back to the Solaria, fighting off the remaining Zephyrian forces as they went. They finally reached the ship and blasted off into space, leaving Zephyria behind. Epilogue. As the Solaria made its way back to Earth, Lila couldn't help but reflect on the events of the past few weeks. They had made an incredible discovery, but they had also uncovered a terrible truth about the Zephyrians' intentions. She knew that the UF would need to be warned about the threat that the Zephyrians posed, and that they would need to take steps to protect Earth and its colonies from any future attacks. But she also knew that they had made a difference. They had stopped the Zephyrians' plans and had shown that humanity was not to be underestimated. They had proven that even in the face of incredible odds, they could rise to the challenge and emerge victorious. As the Solaria entered Earth's orbit, Lila looked out at the blue-green planet that she called home. She knew that there would be more challenges ahead, but she also knew that they would face them together, as a united human race. Upon their return to Earth, Lila and her team were hailed as heroes. They had not only made first contact with an alien civilization, but had also uncovered a sinister plot that threatened the safety of the entire human race. The UF leadership was shocked by the revelations and immediately began to take steps to bolster Earth's defenses. Lila was appointed as the head of a new organization, the Extraterrestrial Defense Initiative EDI, tasked with monitoring the galaxy for any potential threats and developing new technologies to counter them. She threw herself into her work, determined to ensure that humanity would never again be caught off guard by an alien threat. As the weeks turned into months, Lila and her team worked tirelessly to unravel the mysteries of Zephyrian technology. They reverse-engineered the alien devices they had brought back with them, learning more about the advanced energy fields and genetic engineering techniques that the Zephyrians had developed. But even as they made progress, Lila couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something. The Zephyrians had been planning their invasion of Earth for centuries, and she knew that they wouldn't give up so easily. Her fears were confirmed when they received a distress call from one of Earth's outer colonies. The colony had been attacked by a fleet of Zephyrian ships, and the colonists were desperately fighting for their lives. Lila and her team immediately sprang into action, launching a counterattack against the Zephyrian fleet. They used the knowledge they had gained from studying Zephyrian technology to develop new weapons and defenses, and they managed to drive the aliens back. But the attack had been a wake-up call. The Zephyrians were still out there, and they were determined to conquer Earth and its colonies. Lila knew that they would need to be vigilant if they wanted to survive. As the threat of the Zephyrians loomed over Earth, Lila knew that they would need allies if they wanted to stand a chance. She reached out to other alien civilizations that the UF had encountered, hoping to form an alliance against the Zephyrians. To her surprise, she found that many of these civilizations had also been targeted by the Zephyrians. They had been fighting a losing battle against the aliens for centuries, and they were eager to join forces with Earth to turn the tide. Lila and her team worked to establish a network of alliances across the galaxy, sharing technology and intelligence to counter the Zephyrian threat. They developed new ships and weapons that could match the Zephyrians' advanced technology, and they trained their forces to fight together as a united front. As the alliance grew stronger, they began to push back against the Zephyrians. They launched coordinated attacks against Zephyrian outposts and supply lines, weakening their ability to wage war. But the Zephyrians were not about to give up so easily. They launched a massive counterattack, throwing everything they had at the Alliance in a desperate attempt to crush them once and for all. The final battle took place in the skies above Earth. The Alliance had gathered its forces for a last stand against the Zephyrians, knowing that the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. Lila and her team led the charge, piloting advanced fighters and warships that they had developed using a combination of human and alien technology. They fought bravely, taking down wave after wave of Zephyrian ships as they tried to break through the Alliance's defenses. But the Zephyrians were relentless. They threw everything they had at the Alliance, using advanced weapons and tactics that Lila and her team had never seen before. Just when all seemed lost, Lila had an idea. She had been studying the Zephyrians' energy fields, and she believed that she had found a way to disrupt them. If they could take out the Zephyrians' power source, it would disable their ships and weapons, leaving them vulnerable to attack. Lila and Jack led a small team of fighters on a daring mission to infiltrate the Zephyrian flagship. They fought their way through the ship's defenses, taking heavy losses but never giving up. Finally, they reached the ship's power core. Lila activated the device she had developed, sending a pulse of energy through the ship that disrupted the Zephyrians' energy fields. The ship began to collapse around them, and they barely managed to escape before it exploded in a massive fireball. With their power source destroyed, the Zephyrian fleet was left defenseless. The Alliance seized the opportunity, launching a final assault that decimated the remaining Zephyrian forces. As the last Zephyrian ship exploded in a burst of flame, a cheer went up from the Alliance forces. They had done it. They had defeated the Zephyrians and saved the galaxy from their tyranny. Epilogue. In the aftermath of the war, Lila and her team were hailed as heroes once again. The Alliance had emerged victorious, and a new era of peace and cooperation had begun. Lila was appointed as the ambassador to the Alliance, tasked with maintaining the relationships that had been forged in the heat of battle. She worked tirelessly to promote understanding and collaboration between the different alien civilizations, knowing that their unity was the key to their survival. As she looked out at the stars from her office on Earth, Lila couldn't help but reflect on the incredible journey that had brought her to this moment. She had started out as a simple xenobiologist, studying the possibility of life beyond Earth. But she had ended up as a leader, a warrior, and a diplomat, fighting to protect her people and the galaxy as a whole. She knew that there would be more challenges ahead. The galaxy was a vast and dangerous place, and there would always be new threats to face. But she also knew that they would face them together, as a united force that could overcome any obstacle. As she turned back to her work, Lila smiled. The future was bright, and she was ready to face it head-on. Whatever lay ahead, she knew that she and her team would be there to meet it, ready to fight for what was right and to protect the ones they loved. Years had passed since the defeat of the Zephyrians, and the galaxy had enjoyed a period of relative peace and prosperity. The Alliance had grown stronger, with new civilizations joining and sharing their knowledge and resources. Lila had continued her work as ambassador, fostering cooperation and understanding between the different species. However, a new threat was lurking in the shadows. A mysterious entity known only as the Void had begun to appear on the fringes of the galaxy, consuming entire star systems and leaving nothing but emptiness in its wake. At first, the Alliance had paid little attention to the reports, dismissing them as rumors or natural phenomena. But as more and more systems fell to the Void, it became clear that this was no ordinary threat. Lila and her team were called back into action, tasked with investigating the Void and finding a way to stop it before it consumed the entire galaxy. As they delved deeper into the mystery, they discovered that the Void was not a natural phenomenon, but a sentient being of immense power. It had existed since the dawn of the universe, consuming matter and energy to sustain itself. And now, it had set its sights on the galaxy, seeing it as a rich source of sustenance. Lila and her team raced against time to find a way to stop the Void, but every attempt they made seemed to fail. The Void was too powerful, too vast to be contained or destroyed by any conventional means. In desperation, Lila turned to the ancient knowledge of the alien civilizations that had joined the Alliance. She pored over their texts and artifacts, searching for any clue that might help them defeat the Void. And then she found it. A legend passed down through generations, telling of a weapon that could destroy the Void once and for all. The weapon was said to be hidden on a distant planet, guarded by ancient traps and defenses. Lila and her team set out on a quest to find the legendary weapon, knowing that it was their only hope of stopping the Void. They traveled to the distant planet, braving treacherous jungles and ancient ruins as they searched for the weapon. Along the way, they encountered hostile natives and dangerous creatures, each one more deadly than the last. But they pressed on, driven by their determination to save the galaxy from the Void. Finally, they reached the ancient temple where the weapon was said to be hidden. They fought their way through the temple's defenses, using all of their skills and knowledge to overcome the traps and puzzles that blocked their way. And there, at the heart of the temple, they found it. The weapon was a small, unassuming device, no larger than a hand. But Lila could feel the power emanating from it, the potential to destroy the Void once and for all. But as they prepared to leave the temple, they were ambushed by a group of mercenaries, hired by a rogue faction within the Alliance who wanted the weapon for themselves. Lila and her team fought bravely, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. Just as all seemed lost, Jack sacrificed himself to buy the others time to escape. Lila watched in horror as he was cut down by the mercenaries, his body falling lifeless to the ground. With heavy hearts, Lila and the remaining members of her team fled the temple, the weapon clutched tightly in their hands. They knew that they had to get it back to the Alliance, to use it to stop the Void before it was too late. As they raced back to the Alliance headquarters, Lila and her team were pursued by the mercenaries. They fought a running battle through the streets of the city, dodging blaster fire and explosions as they tried to stay one step ahead of their pursuers. Finally, they reached the headquarters, only to find that the rogue faction had already taken control. They had seized power in a coup, and were preparing to use the weapon for their own nefarious purposes. Lila and her team fought their way through the headquarters, taking down the rogue faction soldiers one by one. They finally reached the control room, where the leader of the faction was waiting for them. He demanded that they hand over the weapon, but Lila refused. She knew that the weapon was too powerful to be trusted in the hands of anyone, let alone a power-hungry tyrant. The leader attacked, and a fierce battle ensued. Lila and her team fought with all of their strength, but they were outmatched. One by one, they fell, until only Lila was left standing. With her last ounce of strength, Lila activated the weapon. A blinding light filled the room, and the leader of the rogue faction was consumed by the energy of the void. The headquarters began to collapse around her, and Lila knew that she had only moments left. She stumbled towards the escape pods, the weapon still clutched in her hand. She knew that she had to get it away from the Alliance, to destroy it before it could fall into the wrong hands again. As she launched the escape pod into space, Lila looked back at the planet below. She had sacrificed everything to save the galaxy, and now she was alone, adrift in the vastness of space. But she knew that her sacrifice had not been in vain. The void had been destroyed, and the galaxy was safe once more. And though she might never see her friends and loved ones again, she knew that they would live on, thanks to her courage and determination. Epilogue. Epilogue. Years later, the story of Lila Novak and her team had become a legend, passed down from generation to generation. Children across the galaxy grew up hearing tales of their bravery and sacrifice, of how they had saved the galaxy from the void and the rogue faction. And though Lila herself was gone, her legacy lived on. The Alliance had been reformed, stronger and more united than ever before. And the weapon that had saved the galaxy had been destroyed, its power too great for any one person or civilization to wield. As the stars twinkled in the night sky, the people of the galaxy looked up and remembered Lila Novak and her team. They had given everything to protect the innocent and preserve peace, and their sacrifice would never be forgotten. And somewhere out there, in the vastness of space, Lila looked down on the galaxy she had saved and smiled. She had fulfilled her destiny, and now she could rest, knowing that the galaxy was in good hands. Decades had passed since Lila Novak's sacrifice, and the galaxy had entered a new era of peace and prosperity. The Alliance had grown stronger than ever, with new civilizations joining and bringing their unique knowledge and resources to the table. The memory of Lila and her team's bravery had faded into legend, but their legacy lived on in the hearts and minds of the people. On the distant planet of Zephyria, a young girl named Arya grew up hearing stories of the legendary heroes who had saved the galaxy from the void. She had always been fascinated by the tales of their courage and sacrifice, and dreamed of one day following in their footsteps. As Arya grew older, she began to show a remarkable aptitude for science and technology. She excelled in her studies and was soon accepted into the most prestigious academy on Zephyria. There she learned about the advanced technologies that had been developed in the years since the Void's defeat, and became determined to use her skills to help protect the galaxy from any future threats. After graduation, Arya was recruited by the Alliance to join a new team of explorers and scientists, tasked with investigating strange anomalies that had been detected on the fringes of the galaxy. The team was led by a grizzled veteran named Rax, who had fought alongside Lila Novak in the final battle against the Void. As they set out on their mission, Arya couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement and trepidation. She knew that they were venturing into uncharted territory, and that anything could happen. But she also knew that she was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, armed with her knowledge and determination. As they approached the source of the anomalies, Arya and her team were struck by a sense of unease. The readings they were getting were unlike anything they had ever seen before, and they couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. As they drew closer, they saw it, a massive, swirling vortex of energy, pulsing with an eerie, otherworldly light. It seemed to be growing larger by the second, consuming everything in its path. Brax ordered the ship to pull back, but it was too late. The vortex had already begun to pull them in, and they were powerless to resist its grasp. As they were dragged closer and closer to the center of the maelstrom, Arya could feel the ship shaking and straining against the immense forces that were tearing it apart. And then, suddenly, everything went black. The ship had been consumed by the vortex, and Arya and her team were lost, adrift in an unknown realm beyond the boundaries of the known universe. When Arya awoke, she found herself in a strange, alien landscape. The sky was a sickly shade of green, and the ground beneath her feet was soft and spongy. She looked around and saw that her teammates were scattered around her, unconscious but alive. As they began to stir, they realized that they were not alone. Strange, shadowy figures were moving towards them, their forms shifting and changing like smoke. Arya and her team reached for their weapons, but found that they had been drained of power, rendered useless by the strange energies of this place. The figures drew closer, and Arya could see that they were not entirely solid. They seemed to be made of the same eerie, pulsing energy that had consumed their ship, and their eyes glowed with an otherworldly light. One of the figures stepped forward and spoke in a language that Arya had never heard before. But somehow, she understood its meaning, as if the words were being translated directly into her mind. "Welcome, travelers from beyond the veil," the figure said. "You have entered the realm of the Ascended, where the boundaries of reality are thin and the impossible becomes possible." Arya and her team were stunned. They had heard legends of the Ascended, ancient beings who had transcended the limitations of physical existence and become one with the fabric of the universe itself. But they had always dismissed them as myths, stories told to children to explain the mysteries of the cosmos. And yet, here they were, face to face with the impossible. The Ascended had brought them here for a reason, and Arya knew that they would have to listen carefully to what they had to say. The Ascended spoke of a great danger that threatened not just the galaxy but the entire universe itself. They spoke of a being known as the Devourer, an ancient entity that had existed since the dawn of time, consuming entire galaxies and dimensions in its insatiable hunger. The Devourer had been defeated once before, by the combined efforts of the Ascended and the ancient civilizations that had come before. But now it had returned, stronger and more powerful than ever before. And it was coming for the galaxy, drawn by the energy of the void that had been released when Lila Novak had destroyed it. The Ascended warned that the galaxy was not ready to face the Devourer, that its people were too divided and too focused on their own petty conflicts to stand against such a threat. They urged Arya and her team to return to the galaxy and unite its people, to prepare them for the coming battle. Arya was overwhelmed by the enormity of the task that lay before them. How could they possibly convince the entire galaxy to put aside their differences and work together, when they had been at each other's throats for so long? But she knew that they had to try. The fate of the universe depended on it. With the help of the Ascended, Arya and her team were able to return to the galaxy, their ship restored and their minds filled with new knowledge and purpose. They set out to spread the word of the coming danger, to rally the people of the galaxy to their cause. At first they were met with skepticism and disbelief. Many refused to believe that such a threat could exist, or that the Ascended were anything more than a myth. But as more and more people began to experience strange visions and premonitions of the Devourer's coming, they began to listen. Arya and her team traveled from planet to planet, meeting with leaders and diplomats, urging them to put aside their differences and work together. They spoke of the sacrifices that Lila Novak and her team had made, and of the need to honor their legacy by standing united in the face of this new threat. Slowly but surely, the people of the galaxy began to come together. Old rivalries were forgotten, ancient grudges were set aside. The alliance that Lila had helped to build was reforged, stronger and more united than ever before. And as the Devourer drew ever closer, the galaxy prepared for the battle of its life. Epilogue. In the end, it was Arya who led the charge against the Devourer. Armed with the knowledge and power of the Ascended, she and her team faced the ancient entity head-on, in a battle that would decide the fate of the universe itself. The battle was long and brutal, and many lives were lost. But in the end, the galaxy emerged victorious. The Devourer was vanquished, its essence scattered to the far reaches of the cosmos, never to threaten the universe again. And as the people of the galaxy celebrated their victory, they remembered the sacrifices that had been made to achieve it. They remembered Lila Novak and her team, who had given their lives to save the galaxy from the void. And they remembered Arya and her team, who had united the galaxy in the face of its greatest threat. A new era had begun, one of peace and unity, where the people of the galaxy worked together to build a better future for all. And though the challenges that lay ahead were great, they knew that they could face them, as long as they stood together, for in the end, that was the true legacy of Lila Novak and all those who had come after her. A legacy of hope, of courage, and of the unbreakable bonds that held the galaxy together, now and forever. In the years that followed the defeat of the Devourer, the galaxy entered a new era of peace and prosperity. The alliance that Arya and her team had helped to forge grew stronger with each passing day, as new civilizations joined and brought their unique perspectives and technologies to the table. Arya herself became a symbol of hope and unity, a living legend who had faced the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known and emerged victorious. She continued to work tirelessly to promote cooperation and understanding between the different species and cultures of the galaxy, using her knowledge and skills to help solve the many challenges that arose. But even as the galaxy celebrated its newfound peace, Arya couldn't shake the feeling that their work was not yet done. She had seen firsthand the dangers that lurked in the vast expanse of the universe and knew that there would always be new threats to face, new battles to be fought. And so, she began to train a new generation of heroes, passing on the knowledge and skills that she had learned from the Ascended and from her own experiences. She taught them the importance of unity and cooperation, of the power of the bonds that held the galaxy together. Years turned into decades, and Arya watched as her students grew into leaders and heroes in their own right. And though she knew that her own time was drawing to a close, she took comfort in the knowledge that the galaxy was in good hands. Epilogue. In the end, Arya passed away peacefully, surrounded by the many friends and allies she had made over the course of her long and remarkable life. And as the news of her passing spread across the galaxy, the people mourned the loss of a true hero, a shining example of what it meant to be a part of something greater than oneself. But even as they mourned, they also celebrated her life and her legacy. They remembered the countless lives she had touched, the world she had saved, and the bonds she had forged. And they knew that her spirit would live on, in the hearts and minds of all those who had known her, and in the very fabric of the galaxy itself. For Arya had been more than just a hero. She had been a symbol of hope, a beacon of light in the darkness. And though she was gone, her legacy would endure, inspiring new generations of heroes to rise up and take on the challenges of the universe. And so, as the stars twinkled in the vast expanse of space, the people of the galaxy looked up and remembered Arya, and all those who had come before her. They remembered the sacrifices that had been made, the battles that had been fought, and the bonds that had been forged. And they knew that, no matter what the future might hold, they would face it together, united in the spirit of all those who had given their lives to protect the galaxy and all those who called it home.